Mr. President, thank you so much for making time for us. South Africa is celebrating 25 years of democracy, and we've decided as ENCA to go around, speak to former heads of state as well as eminent persons as well about what they believe democracy is. And the question that we start off when we start off our interview is, how would you finish up the sentence, democracy, or the essence of democracy is? How would you finish up that sentence?
The essence of democracy is participation of the people. People's creativity is unleashed if they have the opportunity to participate in how they are governed. And that is why democratic systems, are springing up, all over Africa. 20 years ago, most African countries were under military dictatorships. Today, most African countries have constitutional governments and hold elections regularly. And so it allows the people to determine who they want to govern them. And so if you are dissatisfied with a system and you're not happy, you know that in 4 years or 5 years there'll be an election and you have the opportunity to kick out, whoever the leadership is. And so I think it works for people. They're able to express themselves easily. There's a better media environment. People are able to speak freely than under dictatorships. And so democracy is essentially about participation of the people in how they are governed.
And when you have such a system, it means that if you have elections regularly, as you say, that there's an opportunity to hold
leaders
the incumbent accountable.
Yeah, it's all about accountability because you hold power in trust for the people. And so you must govern in the national interest in a way that improves the living conditions and the welfare of the people. And so if you're not being able to do that in terms of their own human development, education, providing affordable and quality education, providing affordable and quality healthcare, providing decent housing to the people. If you're not able to achieve that, then you don't deserve to hold power and trust for them, and so they can kick you out.
What we've seen in recent years, and I think right now what's happening in Algeria as well, is that there is this thing where people say there is the voice of the people, where people go on popular demonstrations against the incumbent, and where other people are then arguing that, but this is not a democratic way of removing a government, or holding a government accountable, for others may argue.
Well, I think that in everything you must follow the Constitution and the law. But, of course, the people have the freedom to express their will. And so if they do that in manifestations and demonstrations, that is part of democracy. And in the particular case of Algeria, the president has been ailing for quite a long time. And people feel that it is time for a change, to have somebody, who is in better health, who can move the nation forward. Unemployment is very high in Algeria. And so the youth are expressing dissatisfaction with the system. And I think that the pressure of the manifestations that took place have made the president come out and say he will not seek another term. But of course, the demonstrations have continued. They're saying, no, he should resign. Resignation is voluntary because they have an election coming up. If the election comes up and somebody else wins, then there'll be a new president. But there's a bit of frustration against the system, and that's why you're seeing what is happening in Algeria.
You've been through when you were still the incumbent, where you have these uprisings that would take place. I don't know whether you'd be able to share any sort of wisdom that you would probably advise the government of Algeria and say that we've noticed what happens when you have such uprisings and the ripple effects that it has on the neighboring countries as well. What would be the right steps in the interest of the people and stability in that region? Well,
the president really is not well. I've seen videos of him, and you can tell he's in ill health. I think that stepping aside and letting somebody else, continue the process, elections are held, and new leadership is brought in, I think that would be the way to go.
Article 102 wouldn't be, you reckon? Because there's this whole process that has been proposed by the Lieutenant General that let's probably do Article 102 and have Parliament declare a vote of no confidence in the president and declare him unfit to run.
It's getting more critical because the military have come out to support the demonstrators. The generals said the president must go. And so it's getting a bit critical. And so I think that they need to find a way of handling it, properly. I mean, look at what has happened to Syria. I mean, virtually destroyed the whole country. These things are very sensitive. And so if one has the interest of a nation at heart, I mean, no sacrifice is too big to make.
Let's quickly speak about 2011, where you have this issue, 2014 rather, where you have this issue that is taking place in your neighboring country, Burkina Faso, and it's affecting the other countries as well. Just take us through what was happening at the time, 2014, and also leading into 2015, that attempted coup.
What had happened in Burkina Faso was they had the incumbent president, Blaise Compaoré, and he decided to amend the constitution in order to allow him to run more than 2 terms. And there were signals that people were not happy with it. And I mean, at the time I was ECOWAS chairman, and so we took several opportunities to try to talk to him. I remember we had an ECOWAS meeting in Accra, and myself and President Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire and President Yahi Boni of Benin, we called him and said that we were concerned about the signals we were getting in respect of the constitutional amendment he wanted to move. And so we wanted assurances from him that there was not going to be trouble, because trouble in one country affects the others. I mean, if there's a refugee situation, people stream into your countries and you have to host them. And so he said there was not going to be trouble and that Burkina Faso was okay and stable and all that. And so eventually when the amendment was moved that morning, all hell broke loose in Burkina Faso. People went on the streets, they vandalized the parliament, set fire to it, and the situation became uncontrollable. We were afraid that it could lead to a situation where a lot of people would be killed because, of course, the presidential guard had deployed to protect the presidency. And so if the people stormed the presidency, of course, they would shoot back and a lot of people could lose their lives. And so it became a very sensitive situation that needed to be dealt with. So myself and President Ouattara and a few of us, tried to intervene. And eventually, after a standoff, it was decided that President Compaoré should go to Côte d'Ivoire. So it created a situation of chaos. So for a while, the military took charge. And as ECOWAS chair, we had to go in and stabilize the situation. And so we worked with them. And eventually, they brought the interim government in, which was led by President Kafando. Mm-hmm. And so he held the stage and stabilized things until elections were held, and then a new president was elected. Mm-hmm. It was quite a dangerous situation. It could have degenerated, and it could have resulted in some more nasty civil war or something, and that would have affected the whole sub-region. Mm-hmm. But happily, we were able to keep things calm.
After the break, the Gambia, an election that faces a constitutional crisis.